Let's kick off this explainer with a number that honestly just stopped me in my tracks. 302%. According to the World Prison Brief, that was the occupancy rate of Haiti's prison system in early 2024. Just let that sink in for a second. We're talking about a system operating at over 3 times its official capacity. It's not just crowded, it's a system in profound distress. At that scale, the environment itself starts fundamentally altering the health and survival of everyone locked inside.
And that brings us to the core of today's explainer. We're unpacking the anatomy of a crisis, specifically looking at how physical prison environments and infrastructure directly dictate human health outcomes and basic human rights. We're going to dive deep into the data and first-hand reports out of Haiti, and even look at a really surprising parallel up in Canada, to understand how the literal architecture and administration of a prison can become a matter of life and death. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the overcrowding epidemic, move into the reality of a starvation-level diet, then look at disease and healthcare barriers. After that, we'll examine the actual material of punishment, and finally, wrap things up with the pretrial detention trap.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the overcrowding epidemic.
So you've got this massive disconnect, right? The UN standard minimum rules are super clear. They explicitly call for single-cell occupancy and adequate airspace. But then, you look at the on-the-ground reality in Haiti. A lot of these prisons are just repurposed military barracks. You've got up to 200 people crammed into a single windowless cell. We're talking maybe 0.5 square meters of space per person. That's essentially a small square on the floor. Guys are literally sleeping in shifts, tying up makeshift hammocks, or sometimes just standing up all night. You just can't maintain human health when people don't even have the floor space to lie down.
Which leads us directly to our second section, a starvation-level diet.
A recent nutritional study looked at 2 Haitian prisons, including the massive National Penitentiary, and the findings were pretty grim. In follow-up assessments, over 75% of the incarcerated men were surviving on a starvation-level diet. They were severely lacking in basic vitamins, and their caloric intake was way below recommended daily allowances. Shockingly, the nutritional quality actually got worse during the study. So we aren't just talking about guys feeling hungry, we're talking about profound clinical malnutrition.
To really put that into perspective, let's talk about beriberi. This is a disease caused by a severe deficiency of vitamin B1, which happens when your diet completely lacks fruits and vegetables. Now, you almost never see beriberi, or scurvy for that matter, outside of situations of extreme deprivation. Seeing outbreaks of these diseases tells us just how archaic and dangerous these nutritional deficits are. It basically means the prison diet is dried beans and, well, that's kind of it. The biological toll of that is just massive.
Moving right along to Section 3, disease and healthcare barriers.
Here is how those administrative failures manifest physically. It's basically a deadly chain reaction. Step 1. Unprocessed arrests completely pack the cells. Step 2. The starvation-level diets we just talked about destroy the inmates' immune systems. And Step 3. Diseases like tuberculosis, HIV, and cholera spread like wildfire through the stagnant air of these windowless rooms. The tragic 2010 cholera outbreak is a grim testament to this. At least 70 prisoners died simply because the facility literally didn't have the physical space to isolate contagious individuals.
Now, it's not like nobody is trying to help. Over the years, organizations like Health Through Walls and GHSKO have made incredible strides setting up HIV and TB screening programs. But as this timeline shows, it's a turbulent roller coaster. Any progress is incredibly fragile. You have systemic instability, like the 2004 coup and mass escapes, and then devastating natural disasters like the 2010 earthquake that destroyed the National Penitentiary. These events continually shatter vital health services. It just highlights how medical care in these environments is constantly fighting an uphill battle against the infrastructure itself.
Okay, let's zoom in on Section 4, the material of punishment.
I love this quote because it grounds these massive, abstract ideas about human rights into something completely everyday. The prison toilet is the very fixture upon which the conditions of confinement and the treatment of prisoners are enacted. Think about it, whether a person has independent access to a clean toilet or if they're forced to use plastic bags or outdoor trenches, that directly dictates their dignity, their hygiene, and their exposure to disease. Take a look at these concrete bunks built inside the Croix de Bouquets facility in Haiti. On one hand, you could totally call this a pragmatic victory, right? It provided actual beds and got men off the floor. But on the other hand, it literally bakes overcrowding into the architecture. It forces 6 men into a single cell, blatantly bypassing international single-cell standards just out of sheer geographic and economic necessity.
What's absolutely fascinating is the controversy that erupted over something as mundane as toilets at that same facility. Usually, international standards say you need heavy-duty stainless steel toilets for security reasons. But Haiti's penal administration simply couldn't afford the expensive plumbing required for stainless steel. So, they compromised and installed cheaper porcelain toilets. Now, international observers were really worried the porcelain would get broken and used as weapons, but the reality on the ground proved to be much different.
Ultimately, this physical infrastructure failed, but not because of violence. It failed because of extreme poverty. The prison couldn't even afford toilet paper, so the inmates resorted to using the foam from their mattresses. And as you can probably guess, that completely clogged the sensitive porcelain plumbing and caused massive sewage backups. It's a perfect illustration of how standardized penal designs completely collapse when you try to apply them to under-resourced environments. But this infrastructure gap isn't just an issue in Haiti. Look at a high-income country like Canada. Up at the Bathan Correctional Center in Nunavut, inmates live in what are called dry cells. That means there is absolutely zero plumbing in the cell. If an inmate needs to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, they literally have to bang on the cell door and wait for a guard to escort them to a shared facility. It is a direct violation of international sanitation standards. It proves that geographic isolation and outdated architecture can strip away basic dignity pretty much anywhere in the world. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the pre-trial detention trauma.
If you want to know the root cause of this massive overcrowding, it comes down to this one number: 82%. A shocking 82% of Haiti's prison population are pre-trial detainees. These are individuals who haven't even been convicted of a crime. They are legally innocent, just sitting there waiting for their day in court, within a justice system that is chronically understaffed, completely lacking legal assistance, and moving at an absolute glacial pace.
And the consequence of that judicial bottleneck is a massive population explosion. Just look at these trends. Over 2 decades, the number of inmates surged from under 2,000 back in 2004 to over 11,500 by 2022. That influx completely overwhelmed the physical capacity of the buildings and basically erased all those hard-won gains made by healthcare and nutritional programs. You simply cannot medicate or feed your way out of an administrative crisis of this magnitude.
When physical environments force human beings into 302% capacity, denying them basic space, nutrition, and sanitation, the punishment is no longer just the loss of liberty. The building itself literally becomes a weapon. So based on everything we've unpacked today, I want to leave you with this question. If the architecture of a prison inherently creates disease and starvation, are we delivering justice or just a different kind of violence? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it really shifts how you view the true cost of incarceration.